Today we face an unprecedented scale of social issues and environmental issues. And the important question that we need to ask ourselves is, how are we as individuals contributing to these problems? And how can we be part of the solution instead? We've all heard of issues like greedy middlemen exploiting farmers, some corrupt politicians swindling public funds, and some indifferent mining company CEO turning a blind eye to the well-being of the local tribals and the local environment that are being damaged by dumping of mining waste. We see these three cases to be completely distinct from one another. And in almost every way, they are different from each other. But there is something in common between that greedy middleman, that corrupt politician, and that indifferent CEO. Not just that, there is something in common between these three people and all of us, including myself as well. I have spent the last decade of my life in understanding these common factors that connect us all, so that we can have a more fundamental and a broader understanding of our individual selves and the role each one of us plays in shaping our society. My journey began when in 2010, I quit my job, left my life in the city, and for the last 9 years, I've been on the road. I've lived with various rural and tribal communities, documented the situation on the ground, and also initiated and supported various community development programs to empower these communities to the best of my ability. But before I go any further into what I have been doing, I would like to talk about, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why did I quit my job? Why did I leave my comfortable life in the city? And why have I been wandering through the country for all these years? After working in the corporate sector for about 2 years, I realized that my purpose in life lay elsewhere. And having come to terms with that, the next question in front of me was, if not this, then what? Now, this is a question that most of us are familiar with. At some point or another in our lives, we ask ourselves, what is it that I want to do in my life? But I did not ask myself, what is it that I want to do in my life? Instead, I asked myself, what is it that I want out of my life? What do I want my life to be about? And through this process, the seed for the rest of my family was sown when I decided to dedicate my life to philosophy, which is nothing but self-exploration, and art, which is self-expression, and to combine these two mediums to do socially relevant work. As far as my medium of expression is concerned, I chose documentary photography and filmmaking. But there was a larger question in front of me. Philosophy. What philosophy? What is the best way to understand this life, this world, and my place and role in it all? And how is that philosophy to translate into action? In an ocean of multiple point of views and competing schools of thought, what is the best way to make sense of it all? And I dove into all the thoughts that I came across. I dove into all the confusion that was all around me. And slowly, out of that confusion, clarity began to emerge. And I realized that in order for me to understand the society, I have to understand the fundamental building block of society, the individual person. In order for me to make any sense of the collective, I have to understand the condition of the individual. And here, it was very interesting to observe how almost all of us, including myself, we never really think that we have anything to do with all that is ugly, indifferent, or inhumane about our world. If we were to conduct a survey where we ask random people around the world if they think they have anything to do with all the indifference that exists in our society, chances are most people would say they have nothing to do with it. In fact, all of us sitting in this hall today, if we were to ask ourselves this very question, chances are we would get the same answer, that we have nothing to do with it. Yet, the fact is that there is indifference in our world. Now, both these things cannot be simultaneously true. How can it be that nobody is responsible for this indifference, yet it's all around us? It simply cannot be. So, one thing is for certain, that there is this indifference. And most of us are not sure why. This brings us to the next point in our inquiry, which says that indifference largely breeds on ignorance. Ignorance of, firstly, what is happening in the lives of people and communities around the country and the world. And secondly, and more importantly, how we choose to live in our day-to-day lives, in our personal spheres, connects to and results in everything that we see unfold on a social level. Everything that happens in our society is a result of human interaction, of how we interact with one another and with our environment. And how we interact, in turn, largely depends on our mental makeup, on various social ideas, norms, preconceived notions, and a way of life that all of us have grown up with, observed, and continue to live by. Hence, it seems fair to conclude that we need to examine, re-evaluate, and reimagine some of the most commonly held social ideas and notions that seem to work on our individual level, but also end up creating all this indifference in the world, and hence give rise to all the social issues that we see around us. I have realized that most people try to be their best selves to the best of their knowledge and conscience, but simply do not understand how their personal choices and actions are harming the collective interest. And hence, understanding and answering these questions seems to be the only way for us to take the process of social transformation to the level of the individual person, so that all of us can be part of the story of social change. And it is not just limited to social sector organizations or the government or a few privileged individuals. And understanding and answering these questions is what I have dedicated my life to. In the last 9 years, I've traveled and I've met so many different people from so many different backgrounds and communities. And on the surface, all these people seem so different from one another. The way they look, the way they dress, the food they eat, the language they speak, and their cultural background and so on. But underneath all these differences, I have found nothing but similarities. Similarities that dwarf our differences. From Rajasthan to Assam and from Kerala to Ladakh, I've cherished and celebrated all our cultural, linguistic, and regional diversity. And at the same time, I've learned so much about these underlying similarities that connect us all. And it is in these underlying similarities that I hope to find unified solutions to problems that plague us all and that seem so complex on the surface. People who have lived all their life in Assam think that their problems are the most unique and that people around them are the most selfish and the worst. And people who have lived in Rajasthan at the other end, they have the exact same notion. They think that their problems are the most unique, and that people around them are the most selfish and the worst. But by cutting across different ecosystems and regions, and having spent extended amount of time with various communities, I realized that these notions are not entirely true. All people in all communities are subjectively experiencing the manifestation of the same social notions and structures and a way of life that have been held to be non-violent, peaceful, and harmless. And while a lot of these notions may have to be reimagined and re-examined, one of the central conditioning that enables most of us, some more than others, to knowingly or unknowingly contribute to all the indifference that exists in our society, and that enables a corrupt politician to be corrupt, and a greedy middleman to be insensitive to the plight of farmers, is the unquestioned norm of being concerned with the well-being of a few loved ones and indifferent to the fate of all others. None of these people think that they are evil. That politician or that middleman or that CEO, they do not wake up in the morning and decide that I'm going to destroy that particular family today, or I'm going to exploit that particular community today. They are just completely self-absorbed in getting what they want out of a particular situation for themselves. And in the process of being so thoroughly self-absorbed, are completely unconcerned or unaware of how their choices and actions affect the well-being of other people. This is a condition that we all live with. We all represent the center of a circle. The center is me or I. And an imaginary yet a very real circle around the center is that of me and my. And all the people that we consider as our own fall inside this circle. My brother, my father, my mother, my friend, and so on. And by the very design of this paradigm, a vast majority of people that we meet in our day-to-day lives, in our line of work, or in the society at large, fall outside the circle of me and my, and hence outside our circle of care and concern. And this vast majority of people in society are known as the others or the outsiders. And we've been taught to fear and be suspicious of others. We've been taught to look at others as a threat to our own survival. In relation to one another and in relation to the society at large, this seems to be the condition of the individual person that gives rise to all the indifference that we see in our society today. Elie Wiesel, a survivor of the Holocaust, said that opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And the damage that is done or enabled by this indifference is very well understood in certain walks of society, and hence it is largely identified and criticized. We all understand why it is so harmful for a politician to be indifferent to the well-being of his or her people, or for the middleman to be insensitive to how his actions affect the well-being of the farmers. And since most of us will subjectively never be in the same situation as that politician or that middleman, we think to ourselves, I would never do what these people are doing. And maybe that's true, maybe we won't. But as mentioned earlier, most of these people are not evil. They're just focused on what they want for themselves and their loved ones. And they think that a vast majority of society is not their concern. And similarly, if most of us are operating and working to serve our own interest and to only look after a few people that we consider as our own, we run the risk of hurting the well-being of people that we might not even think about. This realization dawned upon me, and I realized that by working to only serve my own interest, I'm adding to this indifference. And around the same time, I came across a saying which said, look around you. see what needs to be done, yet no one is doing. And that is exactly what you need to be doing. And everything just came together, and I realized that in order for me to be part of the solution and to stop perpetuating the problem, in my own capacity, I have to start working towards expanding my circle of compassion and to embrace the whole of humanity as my own, and hence to ensure its well-being in my own walk of life and capacity as my inherent responsibility. And this realization gave rise to the rest of my family's philosophy as an organization as well. We decided that any community that we live with and document about is part of our family. And so their problems are not just their problems alone. They are our problems too. And hence, we have to try and find a solution to these problems with all our ideas, resources, and even working with all our limitations. When we started, my partner Akshata and I, we would travel and live with communities as much as our resources allowed us to. And we would document the situation on the ground and publish these stories with the hope that people who have the resources and the means to empower these communities would come forward and do something about it. But over time, we realized that documenting alone rarely has a positive impact on the lives of the people who are being documented about. And so we knew we have to do more. We had to do more because the more we traveled and the more we ventured into unknown territories, the kind of love, care, and protection we received from people who were complete strangers to us until that point reaffirmed our notion that social walls that separate a man from another man, a family from another family, and a community from another community are just mental constructs. And they don't really exist. And it was crystal clear that accepting this irrefutable fact that everybody is my own is the only way for me to uproot this indifference out of my own heart and to stop adding to the indifference that's all around me. And from that point on, we decided that we will not stop at just documenting the situation of various communities, but do everything in our capacity to support and empower them. But we were just two freelancers who were living on a paycheck-to-paycheck basis. So how could we even think about supporting other people? Around the same time, crowdfunding began to emerge as a serious way for people like us to realize our vision and dreams. And we launched a crowdfunding campaign that was a huge success. And after that, in February 2016, we set out on a non-stop one-year-long campaign drive through various rural and tribal areas. And a drive that was supposed to last for just 1 year extended for over 3 years. And in the last 3 years, we have lived with and documented about communities in Karnataka, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, West Bengal, and Assam. And with the support of a lot of other people, we have been able to sponsor education of over 400 children, supply clean drinking water in arsenic-contaminated zone in West Bengal, conduct free medical camps in tribal areas of Bastar, Chhattisgarh, and set up a farmer-producer company in Assam, among a few other things. I mention everything that I've been able to do, not to boast about my achievements, but to simply point out that a simple realization that everybody is our own empowered just the two of us to achieve everything that we've been able to achieve so far, and everything that we continue to strive to achieve. And I think similarly, understanding ourselves and our relation and our place in society in this particular light can empower each one of us, wherever we are, whatever be our line of work, whatever be our capacities, to give back to society, to be more compassionate, and to achieve amazing things. Not as a burden or a compulsion or as a charity or as a favor, but with the acceptance of the fact that all of us are in this together. We are all on the same side. My aim is not to dictate what anyone should or should not do. And neither am I saying that people should compromise on their personal goals and ambitions. All I'm saying is that as we go about shaping our lives, let our choices and actions be rooted in this understanding that caring for the well-being of other people and the society is all our responsibility. And I understand that embracing the whole of humanity as your own and ensuring its well-being in your own action and capacity might seem like a burden at first thought. But it's not. As I have realized, it is more empowering and liberating to step out of fear and into love. Besides, we owe it to end our indifference not just for the sake of other people, but for our own sake as well. Because all of us are stuck in a vicious cycle of indifference. We are hurt by the indifference that we are subjected to, and then we perpetuate it by passing it on to the other people, waiting for the other person to be kind to us first. And the other person waits for us. And this cycle never ends. And as a result of this perpetuated indifference, various social and environmental issues keep cropping all around us. So, all of us have to be concerned with doing our individual bits and not justify not changing ourselves because other people won't. By doing that, we are letting other people's weaknesses limit and control our personal as well as social growth and progress. Humanity's only lasting hope lies in all of us realizing that caring for one another and working towards reducing our individual indifference is all our responsibility. Because it is not the rest of my family, it is the rest of your family too. It is the rest of our family. Thank you very much.